Nothing can harm your spirit. It is only your own thoughts that do so, says Marcus Aurelius. What does this mean? Imagine you are walking down the street, and a very beautiful woman appears in front of you. You can't help but look at her. It's as if you are somewhat dependent on her. However, as she approaches and looks at you, you suddenly sense contempt or a feeling of superiority in her gaze. She glances at you for a moment and then turns her eyes away. So, what should we do in that moment? Should we feel bad? No. As soon as we realize this, we should straighten ourselves out a bit more, turn our faces away, and shift our eyes elsewhere. In doing so, the other party realizes that they are not as beautiful as they think, at least not in your eyes, and they begin to think, this guy is different from the others, and they start to feel envious of you. Or perhaps the woman you love is looking for excuses to leave you and is trying to distance herself. But if you sense this immediately and act in time, the other party will falter. What others think of you is their problem. What matters is how you respond. Epictetus emphasizes a very important point here. Regardless of whether others like you or not, whether in the street or any situation, how they treat you is their issue. What matters is what you do. This is the law. You may love a woman and nurture the most beautiful feelings towards her, but if one day you confess your feelings to her shyly and she responds poorly, if you appear disappointed at that moment, you have lost. Yes, it's true you will feel very bad, and it will seem like the whole world is falling apart around you. However, you must live with this in your heart and not let the other party feel it. You must understand deep down that you are truly valuable. No one can take your worth from you unless you let them. Sometimes we take blows and don't know how to respond in return, but the Stoic approach offers answers to all these situations. In life, a person should either be like the sea or like the rocks on the shore. Either we will be shattered and broken against the rocks, or we will stand firm against the sea. As someone who has faced hardships, my advice to you is to immediately show indifference and coolness in response to any negative action from a woman you encounter or that you do not like. 1. Acknowledge the illusion of superiority. The philosopher Emperor Marcus Aurelius often reminded us that the outside world is only a reflection of our interior ideas and experiences. It's important to understand that when someone claims to be superior, it's usually a result of insecurity or miscommunication on their part. Being superior is a delusion that can mislead us. Real power comes from appreciating our individual worth rather than measuring ourselves against others. When confronted with such assertions, pause to consider what it means to be genuinely superior. Is it money, prestige, or the ephemeral thoughts of others? Rather than waging an ego war, concentrate on developing your own values, such as wisdom, compassion, and honesty. These attributes have a considerably more lasting influence than any flimsy assertion of superiority. You weaken the other person's claim by standing firm in your values and realizing your own value. You turn into a ray of confidence, reassuring yourself and others that our real power originates from inside, not from external recognition. Number 2. Accept the art of perspective. One of the greatest Stoic philosophers, Seneca, highlighted the significance of perspective in forming our perception of reality. When interacting with someone who thinks they are better than you, stand back and consider the bigger picture. Instead of letting yourself be sucked into a debate over merit, think about the intentions underlying their statements. What makes someone claim to be better than others? It frequently has its roots in a fear of being inadequate or a deep-seated need for approval. You may turn the interaction from a possible confrontation into a teaching moment by realizing this. Ask open-ended inquiries that promote introspection and self-reflection to get them talking. You may ask them about their experiences or the principles they adhere to, for example. This not only makes meaningful debate possible, but it also constructively challenges the idea of supremacy. Never forget that every conversation is a chance to learn something new about the other person, yourself, and the complexity of human nature. During these conversations, remember the Stoic exercise of turning your attention within instead of outward. Instead of letting someone else's perspective determine your value, learn to appreciate that your worth is inherent and untouched by the whims of others. This change of viewpoint not only gives you more power, but also strengthens your bonds with others around you. 3. Cultivate inner peace. The great Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This statement emphasizes a major idea of Stoic philosophy, which holds that our strength comes from our responses rather than from outside forces. The first thing to do when facing someone who asserts their superiority is to find inner calm. When things get tense, Take a deep breath and make the intentional decision to react calmly. Understanding and controlling your emotions is the goal of this exercise, rather than just repressing them. When you remain calm, you foster an environment conducive to reason, rather than responding angrily or defensively. Exemplify the serenity that Stoicism promotes. Imagine the following scenario. When the other person proclaims their seeming superiority, remind yourself that your value is not determined by their view. Take stock of your values and consider what is most important to you. This clarity within serves as a barrier against the cacophony of criticism from without. Developing inner peace also enables you to interact wisely as opposed to impulsively. It makes it possible for you to actively listen, encouraging conversation as opposed to conflict. You may voice your opinions in this area in an aggressive yet kind manner, proving that real strength is about maintaining composure under duress, rather than dominating people. You uplift your own soul and provide a strong example for others by taking care of this inner peace. Because of your composed manner, they can be moved to reevaluate their strategy and perhaps question their own claims of supremacy. 4. The power of compassion. At the core of Stoic philosophy, compassion serves as a constant reminder that vulnerability is a universal human experience, even behind the bluster of superiority. It's important to realize that someone's bluster may be a symptom of their own insecurity while you're with them. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. As Seneca sagely observed, approach the problem with empathy rather than defensiveness or animosity. Think about the expectations and pressures that may lead someone to claim they are better than others. They can be battling feelings of inadequacy or the need to prove oneself in a society that frequently places a higher importance on status than morality. Recognizing this helps you have a better grasp of their viewpoint, which can change the interaction. Practice active listening by allowing people to express themselves without passing judgment. By doing this, you foster an atmosphere in which open communication and vulnerability may grow. Your empathy may lead to a more genuine conversation in which people are able to express their ideas and experiences without having to put on a front. Furthermore, exhibiting compassion does not entail sacrificing your own integrity. Instead, it gives you the strength to uphold your moral principles while respecting the humanity of others. Kindness not only dissipates potential animosity, but also demonstrates a power that surpasses ego. By questioning their presumptions and encouraging them to reevaluate their position, your kind approach may start a discourse that has the potential to change their perspective. In the end, keep in mind that real superiority is found in elevating people rather than demeaning them. By being compassionate, you make a difference and serve as a reminder to the other person and to yourself of the deeper bonds that exist between all people. 5. Examine the basis for their assertions. It's important to carefully respond to someone who is claiming to be superior when you come across their assertions. Use the Socratic technique to your advantage by challenging them with pointed questions that promote introspection, rather than taking their claims at face value. As Epictetus instructs, what disturbs us are not things per se, but our interpretations of them. Start by investigating the standards they employ to determine what constitutes superiority. Is it intelligence, riches, social standing, or something else entirely? Asking them to explain their thinking can start a more in-depth discussion that can take the focus off of rivalry and ego. This method not only encourages a more fruitful conversation, but also calls into question the core of their assertion. You can wonder, for instance, what characteristics do you think make someone superior? Or how do you determine someone else's worth? These inquiries can highlight how supremacy is frequently arbitrary and subjective. They could come to see that their standards are more a reflection of their own prejudices than of any objective reality as the conversation goes on. You might also consider your own values and inquire about how they match theirs. This promotes communication that goes beyond simple disagreement and toward understanding. Say, I think true worth is found in kindness and integrity. How do you see that fitting into your view of superiority? As an example of what you could say, you break down the facade of superiority by approaching the subject with interest instead of aggression. You change the emphasis from rivalry to a cooperative investigation of principles and ideas. This approach not only promotes a deeper conversation, but also demonstrates your own self-assurance and commitment to your values. In the end, challenging the foundation of their assertions changes the dynamic from one of confrontation to one of education. You both challenge their perspectives and reaffirm your own definition of what it means to live a life of virtue and purpose in this exchange of questions. Number 6. Emphasis on shared humanity. At the core of Stoic philosophy is the profound realization that we are all interdependent creatures attempting to navigate life's challenges together. Recalling our common humanity is crucial when confronted with an individual who asserts superiority. What is not good for the swarm is not good for the bee. As the sage Marcus Aurelius once observed, we have to acknowledge that behind the surface of every contact we are all the same. We have identical weaknesses, challenges, and dreams. Regardless of their apparent status or accomplishments, nobody is immune to life's hardships. You may cultivate a sense of connectedness that surpasses the delusion of superiority by adopting this viewpoint. When conversing with someone who feels superior to you, pause to share this common feeling. One may argue, we all have our own struggles, don't we? Or, at the end of the day, we all desire pleasure and satisfaction. These reminders can help change the emphasis from rivalry to friendship, fostering an atmosphere where sincere conversation can flourish. Additionally, empathy may be developed by concentrating on our common humanity. It's simpler to approach someone with compassion than with defensiveness when you regard them as a fellow traveler on life's journey. This change can spark more in-depth discussions that highlight points of agreement and promote respect for one another. Furthermore, you cast doubt on the idea of superiority itself by drawing attention to our shared weaknesses. You can argue that everyone has different talents and shortcomings, and that no one is genuinely better than another. This acknowledgement encourages the other person to change their mind and gives you more influence. Ultimately, you can handle these situations with grace if you work on being conscious of our common humanity. By highlighting our shared experiences, you create chances for development and connection rather than walls, turning potential conflicts into bridges. You are a living example of Stoic wisdom because you accept that we are all a part of a larger totality. Number 7. Remain firm in your principles. One of the most effective ways to counter assertions of superiority is to remain steadfast in your own principles. Stoicism teaches us that our value is derived from our dedication to virtue, integrity, and character rather than from the views of others. A classic quote from Epictetus reads, "No man is free who is not master of himself." It's critical to clearly and confidently state your own values while facing someone who thinks they are better. Think about what is most important to you: courage, kindness, humility, or honesty. By establishing these principles as your cornerstone, you strengthen your sense of self and provide yourself a solid platform on which to act. For example, politely remind them of the values you uphold if they attempt to minimize your efforts. Saying something like, "I value respect and collaboration, and I believe those are the cornerstones of any meaningful interaction," not only makes your point clear but also promotes a respectful discourse. Furthermore, maintaining your integrity gives you the ability to reject negativity and claim your identity. It makes a strong statement that you are unaffected by criticism from others or deceptive tactics. Knowing who you are and what you believe in is the foundation of genuine strength, and your perseverance can encourage others to reevaluate their own opinions. Living out your ideals also has a cascading impact. Responding with sincerity and genuineness sets an example for others, showing them that living up to one's ideals is the path to true supremacy. By fostering an atmosphere where respect and understanding may grow, this approach completely challenges the need for dominance. Essentially, you can confidently and gracefully declare your identity when you stand by your principles. You serve as a reminder to both yourself and other people that genuine value is determined by character strength and the guts to live an authentic life, rather than by comparison. By doing this, you make room for relationships that are more important and profound, in addition to elevating yourself. 8. The wisdom of detachment. The habit of distancing oneself from other people's opinions is one of Stoicism's most significant lessons. You have control over your thoughts, not external circumstances, as the astute Marcus Aurelius observed. When confronted with someone who asserts superiority, this idea is essential because it enables you to preserve your inner calm and feeling of self-worth. Realize this, and you will find strength. Detachment is the deliberate decision to keep your sense of self-worth apart from other people's opinions, not apathy. Remind yourself that people's perspectives are molded by their own experiences, prejudices, and fears whenever they make an assertion of superiority. It isn't a fair indicator of your worth. Realizing this can help you develop an inner fortitude that protects you from the damaging consequences of statements like these. If someone trivializes your accomplishments or character, for instance, pause to consider your own path and the principles that guide you. Do you feel proud of who you are and what you have accomplished? This introspection is a potent reminder that your value is intrinsic and unaffected by the perceptions of others. Detachment training also enables you to participate in conversations with more thoughtfulness. You can approach conversations with calm and inquiry instead of responding emotionally. Using the Stoic question, "What can I learn from this situation?" may be beneficial for you. This kind of thinking not only helps you improve personally, but it also makes the encounter seem more like a worthwhile opportunity than a conflict. You also give yourself the power to decide how you interact with other people by practicing detachment. You may react calmly and with dignity, letting your behavior speak for you, instead of letting other people's opinions cloud your judgment. This strategy strengthens your authenticity by serving as a reminder to you and everyone around you that genuine strength comes from maintaining your composure in the face of adversity. The knowledge of detachment ultimately liberates you from the need for affirmation and acceptance from others. It enables you to maintain your integrity while establishing deeper relationships by guiding conversations with clarity and purpose. By adopting this Stoic discipline, you develop an inner strength that is strong enough to overcome passing criticism and establish your own value in the world. 9. Seek growth, not victory. In the context of Stoicism, the desire to win a discussion or argument is significantly less important than the pursuit of one's own personal development. Seneca said, rather correctly, that the mind that is anxious about the future is miserable. Therefore, when you are conversing with someone who asserts their superiority, try to put less emphasis on your need to impress them and more on the chance for knowledge and improvement. Every conversation offers a rare opportunity to discover something new about both you and the other person, especially those that are tense. Consider the discussion as a cooperative investigation rather than as a contest. What can I learn from this experience? You could ask yourself. How can we both grow from this conversation? For example, instead of responding angrily to remarks that are disparaging, act curiously. You may say, "I value your viewpoint. Could you perhaps clarify what you mean by that?" This not only allows for a more in-depth conversation, but it also prompts the other person to consider their own ideas. This promotes a conversational atmosphere as opposed to a confrontational one. You can diffuse any possible anger by framing the encounter in terms of progress. You demonstrate that comprehending is more important to you than making a point. This strategy may cause the other person to reevaluate their position, resulting in more fruitful and significant conversations. Recall that suffering is frequently the catalyst for progress. You develop your own critical thinking and communication abilities by participating in these difficult discussions. Accept the discomfort as a first step toward enlightenment for both the other person and yourself. This way of thinking is consistent with the Stoic idea that misfortune may be a potent teacher. In the end, focusing on development rather than winning changes the nature of your relationships. By putting aside ego and rivalry, you foster an environment where both sides may grow and learn from one another. By doing this, you promote relationships that are based on respect and understanding amongst people, emulating the Stoic ideal of constant self-improvement. Number 10. The legacy of your response. It's important to think about how your comments will be seen in the long run while handling situations in which someone asserts their superiority. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be, said Marcus Aurelius. Be one. This Stoic maxim is a potent reminder that your actions in the heat of the moment affect not only your own character, but also the attitudes and actions of those around you. Every interaction is a chance to make an impression and start a chain reaction that goes beyond the exchange of words. What kind of memory do you want to leave behind right now? What message about my principles and convictions do I wish to deliver? By responding with this perspective, you transform the conversation from a simple verbal exchange into an opportunity to live up to your values. For example, reply with grace and dignity when confronted with dismissiveness or arrogance. Saying something like, "I respect our dialogue and I appreciate your perspective," would be a more respectful way to respond than trying to outwit the other person. It also shows your character and may even persuade them to change their strategy. Think about the wider ramifications of your answers as well. Your behavior, both said and unspoken, affects how others view and interact with one another. You may foster a culture of respect and compassion by answering with love and understanding and proving that real power comes from building others up rather than knocking them down. Your legacy is woven into the larger fabric of existence through the relationships you make with other people. The way you respond to assertions of dominance might encourage those around you to follow suit, creating a climate that is conducive to growth and respect for one another. This legacy is considerably more important than any short-lived argumentative win. The Stoic principles of virtue and integrity are ultimately what you identify yourself with when you concentrate on the legacy of your replies. You serve as a reminder to both yourself and other people that living a meaningful life is more important than just winning conflicts. By doing this, you turn potentially tense exchanges into chances for mutual understanding, introspection, and personal development.